These same doctors who tell you not to eat sushi while you're pregnant will tell you that at 28 weeks, you should get 3 vaccines with 5 antigens in them, and another one at 34 weeks. Now, these vaccines at 28 weeks, the flu, the COVID, and the DTaP. DTaP is diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. There are 5 antigens in 3 vaccines. The DTaP vaccine has 250 micrograms of, I think it's 250, might be 400, of aluminum in it. You're giving that to a woman to prevent what? To possibly prevent a baby from catching it later on in life. I mean, in the first 6 months of life before it can get on its own vaccine schedule, which is a whole other topic. But the question you should ask before you take a vaccine like that is it safe? And there are no safety studies. There are no safety studies in you and me, let alone pregnant women. Secondly, before you take a vaccine for something, you should ask, what's the morbidity of this disease if I don't take the vaccine? How many babies are going to be affected with pertussis in the first 6 months of life? And the most recent data, I looked into this because I'm a nerd, and I looked into this, and I found that the last data I think was from 2021 that I could find, and there were 30 children that died from pertussis between 0 and 5 years of age. Now, if you believe that there's about 4 million children born every year, that means we're talking about 20 million children.
Yeah. You multiply by 5 years.
Yep.
20 million?
20 million children, and 30 died between age 0 and 5. How many of those died between 0 and 6 months? Not listed. So you're giving a vaccine which carries toxins in it that's never been tested for safety to prevent something that almost never happens.
Why aluminum is in the vaccine?
It makes it work better, supposedly. It makes your immune system react faster. It's called an adjuvant.
Can we consume aluminum daily, let's say with food or something?
There is aluminum in our environment, but I don't know if it's the FDA or whoever makes the safe levels number. I don't know if that's the NIH or whatever. But there is supposedly a safe level. I believe there's no safe level of heavy metals.
Inject it.
Well, of taking it in your body in any way, shape, or form. It's bad enough taking it orally, but orally, at least you have your liver and your other things to help metabolize it. Injecting it bypasses all your body's defense mechanisms. And so it's even worse.
But aluminum, it's a metal.
Well, they used to have thimerosal, which is mercury.
Mercury?
If you look at the history, Apollo, if you look at the history, in the turn of the 1900s, early 1900s, they put mercury in babies' teething powder.
When I was a kid, I used to have this thermometer, and I've always been told, if I break it, don't get even near to that thermometer because of the mercury.
Well, you're younger than me. When we broke a thermometer, we used to play with the mercury.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was fun to play with.
But it's poison.
It's poison. Who knew? We didn't know. My mom used to put mercurochrome when I got a cut, which is a deep red stuff, it's liquid that you put on a cut. It had mercury in it, for God's sakes. This is what we did. We had arsenic in certain things. We had, the whole idea of polio and the gypsy moth and the story about pesticides being the actual cause of paralysis and not the polio virus. That's a whole other story. There's a book called Moth and the Iron Lung by a guy named Forrest McGrady, which he's written several good books. He wrote one called Crooked, about smiles, about babies that have cute little smiles where their mouth is a little crooked and everybody says, isn't that cute? So no, that baby has facial paralysis, probably from a vaccine. And then he wrote one called The Autism Vaccine, which was about diphtheria. They're very good. They're very good books to look at. But getting back to my purpose about talking about these things that doctors consider risky and don't consider risky is that, again, sushi's not good. 5 vaccines in pregnancy, that's okay. Don't feed your baby. There's something about don't feed your. I'm drawing a blank on it. Don't feed your baby certain food. But give it hepatitis vaccine when it's new. I'm drawing a blank on what I was comparing. I have all these great comparisons as part of my course.
But Hep B is for junkies, for drug addicts, and for prostitutes.
Yeah, Hep B is the stupidest vaccine to give to a newborn ever thought of. But as you and I were talking before we started, it's a gateway drug. It's to get parents and into the mindset that vaccines are useful.
Okay, so I'm 37 years old.
Yeah.
How can I get Hep B right now? Even to use how is it called when you get the drugs? That word. This plastic thing.
Oh, syringe.
Syringe.
Yeah, IV drug abuse.
Yeah.
Sharing needles is
You
what.
share a
one way.
needle or
Yeah.
have sex with a prostitute that has a Hep B?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Theoretically, if somebody had active hepatitis B and maybe you drank out of the same glass or something like that, it's not airborne. You can't get it from hugging. I don't even think you can get it from kissing because saliva is really antiviral.
So where can a newborn baby can get Hep B?
Can't. If the parents are hepatitis B negative. And here's a question I've always asked. First of all, pretty much everybody who's had prenatal care is screened for hepatitis B. And if a parent comes in off the street without any prenatal care, they can easily run a hepatitis B screen on the mother and get it back in a few hours from the hospital. So they don't need to give the baby hepatitis B vaccine. But the logic behind it doesn't make any sense at all. And I have the same question about tetanus. If you step on a rusty nail, you're supposed to get a tetanus shot. But the truth is, your body takes about 2, 3, 4 weeks to develop an immune response from the from the tetanus vaccine.
Say that once again. Once you step on a rusty nail, you have to get the vaccine.
They want you to get a tetanus shot. Okay, that's
and
what we were always
vaccine
taught.
works only after a few
It
weeks.
takes several weeks for the vaccine to start producing something called IgM, which is the initial. It takes. So by that time, you're already infected with tetanus.
Correct.
So here's the same thing with hepatitis. If you're born to a mother with active hepatitis, what is giving the hepatitis vaccine going to do for a baby whose immune system, first of all, isn't even barely functioning yet? So he can't really develop immune response. What the baby needs is what's called hepatitis big, or H-big, which is hepatitis B immune globulin, which gives the antibodies to the baby to fight the hepatitis and helps the baby wipe out the circulating hepatitis vaccine, virus. Giving hepatitis vaccine to a newborn baby who's been exposed to hepatitis makes absolutely no sense to this brain right here. And I've never been able to find anyone to explain to me why giving hepatitis vaccine, even if the mother has active hepatitis, is going to be helpful. It seems stupid.
She already has one.
Say again?
She has already Hep B. And the kid as well, right?
If a mother is one of those women that has hepatitis B, the baby should get immune globulin after it's born, should be tested and make sure it doesn't already have hepatitis. Get immune globulin, it's fine. But giving it a hepatitis vaccine that contains 250 micrograms of aluminum in a newborn baby, and by the way, the dosing of medicine for babies is based on fetal weight, is based on weight. Antibiotics, anti-seizure medication, it's all calculated based on fetal weight.
But not the
Vaccines, baby weighs 5 pounds, baby weighs 10 pounds, gets the same vaccine. You can tell it's not scientific. It's almost robotic. It's actually scary that some of the most intelligent people go to medical school and then for some reason lose their ability to have logical reasoning and questioning, challenging things. Raising their hand from the front row and saying, or the back row and saying, that's where I sat in medical school, was the back row. Used to play hangman with my friend Lex. Was raise your hand and say, excuse me, that doesn't, giving hepatitis vaccine to a newborn baby doesn't make any sense to me. Well, if they're exposed to hepatitis, well, first of all, the mom doesn't have hepatitis, so how could it be exposed? Secondly, if it's exposed to hepatitis, you got to give it H-big. But how does the vaccine help the baby? What are you talking about? Why would you give it? And I don't know the answer to that. And I've asked great people like Paul Thomas, and he's agreed with me. He says it doesn't make sense. I don't know if you know who Paul is. Paul is a pediatrician who's written some books. He's got a new book out called Facts, which I would recommend people look at too. If they've got kids and they want to decide what to do. He did a study that he lost his license for because it
you can do a study and lose your license?
Yeah, he published a study of his own clients, And basically it said, he had a population of 10,000 or so kids, and about 8,000 had been vaccinated and about 2,000 had not been vaccinated. And he looked at about 18 or 19 different areas of health. Things like ADHD, eczema, colitis, Crohn's disease, autism, asthma. And in every single category, the unvaccinated kids were healthier than the vaccinated kids. And for that, the Oregon Medical Board suspended his license. He fought them. He eventually, I think, got his license back, but he wasn't allowed to talk about vaccines with his patients. So he finally surrendered his license, and now he's free to speak. And he's with Children's Health Defense TV, and he's got a podcast called With the Wind podcast.
Paul Thomas,
MD, be a great guest for you. Right?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You tell the truth and you lose your license.
Yep. Oh, look at all the doctors who lost their license for telling people not to get the COVID vaccine.
Yeah, but that was bamboozling us in 2020. But
yeah.
And he was not supposed to talk to his patients about the vaccines.
No, he was supposed to skew his consent because that's what the big pharma and big medicine wanted. Look at most pediatricians these days are really between an ethical rock and a hard place. And I think a lot of them have just put their head down. As I said earlier, they have sold their soul to keep their practice instead of keeping their soul and losing their practice, because they are prescribing poison to people for profit and with no evidence of benefit in many, and no scientific evidence of safety because they've never been studied. The hepatitis vaccine that's given to babies, if you look at the package insert, was studied for 5 days.
You're kidding me.
No.
5 days.
5 days. All right. A lot of the vaccines were studied for less than that. And sometimes maybe a couple weeks. They never looked a year down the line, saw if there's a problem. If a baby develops seizures or some other, or regressed in their milestones or whatever, a week out, they were excluded. They were not part of the study. And yet they pushed this through. This is how what power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So Big Pharma is the number one sponsor of medical schools. It's the number one sponsor of TV news networks. It's the number one sponsor of politicians. You figure it out in your head.
So I was born in 1988. I grew up in the 90s. I went to school. Our school was not big, let's say 700 students only, right? So I had 25 to 30 classmates. I had, let's say in my childhood, I had, let's say 100 friends or 100 people that I knew personally. I have never ever heard in my life about myself or other kids, my other friends, acquaintances having peanut allergy, dog allergy, autism, or something else. I used to have asthma. But the allergies, the first time I heard about the peanut allergy, I would say I was like 18 years old. Maybe I saw this in the movie. And this is a common thing here in USA, right? How come?
Because they used peanut allergens apparently in vaccines as an adjuvant. So people created antibodies to that. There's a documentary called The Diabolical Agenda. I don't know if you've seen it. Mm-hmm. It was produced by Andy Wakefield. You know Andy Wakefield? No. Okay, Andy Wakefield is famous for the fact that he came out. He was an endocrinologist in England, and he found that he was seeing a lot of colon problems in babies that had been vaccinated with the MMR vaccine. So he wrote a paper stating what he saw. And for that, challenging, he didn't say MMR causes autism. He just said there's an association between autism and babies with gastrointestinal problems that he's been noticing. And for that, he was pilloried. And they took away his license in England and all that. And he went on to redeem himself and make lemonade out of the lemons. He became very well known. He produced he directed a very famous documentary. It came out about 5-10 years ago, Vaxxed. I don't know if you've heard of Vaxxed. He just had a movie that came out last year called Protocol 7. It was about Merck falsifying its mumps data. But he did a documentary. It's a very short documentary. It's less than an hour, I think, on it's called The Diabolical Agenda, and it's based on the fact that in Kenya, the World Health Organization, Bill Gates affiliated with them, Tedros, the guy that's still running it now, they gave tetanus vaccines to women in Kenya laced with human chorionic gonadotropin.
What is that?
HCG. That's your pregnancy hormone.
Mm-hmm.
Was put in the vaccine on purpose. What happened then is that women made antibodies to HCG.
Oh.
So when they got pregnant, they attacked their own early pregnancies and they had miscarriages or they had infertility.
And it's documented?
It's documented.
Fact checked.
And the only person that ever suffered for this was the doctor who disclosed it. He apparently died of COVID. Okay. But nobody who was behind it has ever been perp walked, spent a day in jail, paid a fine, nothing. But this is typical. This is what goes on in the world. Doctors or scientists or politicians or lawyers or anybody who's been behind these things, or so-called humanitarians like Bill Gates who've been behind these things, have never paid a price.
And never will.
Yeah,
Afterlife only.
I agree that it seems very unlikely that they will ever pay a price. I would love to see it someday, that one of them gets perp walked, just one of them. So many of us would like to see that happen. But people can look at. There's so many good pieces of information out there, and look at. You can watch them and you can say, "Yeah, I don't necessarily believe that." That's okay. That's okay. But people should have open mind to the idea that the indoctrination they're getting from the pharmaceutical companies, from big medicine, what I call the medical cartel, is not to be believed, because they've been wrong so many times. It's like trust.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody makes an error in judgment one time, you can maybe forgive them. But if it's a pattern,
fool me once, that's on me. Fool me twice,
shame on you. You're right. Right. I'm saying, but why do you go back and still believe them? Look what they did to us during COVID. You can't go to church, but you can go to your liquor store. Right? You need to stay on 6 feet apart unless you're at somebody's elite party in Beverly Hills or in the Hamptons. You have to wear a mask on the hiking trail. We're going to arrest you if you're playing Frisbee on the beach. Okay. Did that make any sense at all? Walmart can stay open, but your local furniture store can't. And we bought it.
I bought it. I was afraid
you have to wear a mask at Staples Center, or you have to wear a mask at the airport and the airplane, but you can take it off to eat.
But when you chew it, you have to put it on back.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, to drink or to take it. It's like, and we all believed him. And the dumbest one of all was the 6 feet apart one. That goes back to I have this exact number rule. I think I might have been talking about earlier, mm-hmm. which, like age 35 or 42 weeks or 24 hours of ruptured membranes or 1 minute of delayed cord clamping or 6 feet apart. These are all completely made up numbers, and yet they become part of our culture. Everybody thinks that if you're over 35, that's a problem. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not a problem in any way, shape, or form just because you're over 35.
But would you say nowadays 34 is like 25? 35 right now is like 25, 70 years ago.
It doesn't even matter, because the number's not going to change, because the number came from the 1950s, that age 35 thing. Came from an era prior to ultrasound, where they were doing amniocentesis and there was a risk of miscarriage that equaled the risk of Down syndrome, and therefore that those things crossed at age 35. And it's been kept ever since. It's absolutely meaningless.
What are your
I mean,
thoughts?
again, look at your labs. If you have diabetes screening,